I mean, I'm the same. Like, and this actually reminds me of something that was fairly recent. Was like, I was working on a mix for a song called Monster Funk, and I don't know if you heard that record. It's I produced it, and it has Mr. Walk and Aeon's One is on it, and
I think you have the instrumental to that up, maybe.
uh, it's all up. If you pull
I
it,
think
if
I
you go
heard
on
the instrumental, and then I said, "Well, I just heard the instrumental, so I skipped the one because I was more interested in that part."
yeah, yeah, but that's what I was. That's actually what I was gonna elaborate on because the instrumental, like, I worked really hard to get those drums to pop. Like, I'm a big like I care about sonics and making shit sound good. Like as a producer, like I'm not just the guy that just structures it out and be like, "Yo, mix my shit, bro." Like, I actually don't like letting other people handle my shit. So
I love it when other people mix me because I am not an engineer. I do not
yeah,
enjoy that
I mean, yeah,
process.
I get it too because not everybody has like. It's just for me. I have such a specific sonic, um, whatever the word is that like I have to do it. So now as a as a consequence, good or bad, I'm mixing other people's stuff, and they all love my shit because I just don't like the squashed mixes and like the mastering and stuff like that where it's just like you brick wall the shit out of it.
Actually,
That's
yeah, I do know what you're talking about.
yeah.
But
So
that
that
might be worth elaborating a bit for other people how
right.
that
So
works.
essentially, what happens is if ooh, um in relatively simplifying terms, and y'all can Google this um too, but there's something called the loudness war. So basically, it's been going on for a while in different forms, like back when vinyl was the main format. The loudness war also existed, but it really started to accelerate when digital formats became the norm. And basically, what it means is it means mastering a record as loud as possible because the idea is if the record is louder, then it'll have more of an impact. But the problem is, you know, when you run, your mix downs through these limiters and these brick wall limiters, and you multi-band the compress the shit out of everything, and you fuck up the transients. It sounds harsh, and it sounds like it's just being squashed. And
Alright,
I was
so
never a fan of those
a
kinds of
limit.
mixes.
So that's basically what they saying is like when you do your mixes, right, and you look at vocal tracks. Back in the daytimes, they used to play more with dynamics and shit. Like you can
Yeah,
see it a lot with drums. I know how to explain it best with drums a little bit.
yeah.
So like drums
It's
used to be
especially
like
in the
hit.
drums.
The drums used to be like, yo, a drummer is recording it, right? And so it would be like top, and it would be like 2 decibels, let's say. The next top is 4 decibels. The next top is three, and it would be like dynamic sounding because that's what a real
Right.
drum set sound like. So what engineers did to enhance it is they would take every low sounding kick, let's say, that wasn't at the same decibel level, copy one of the louder kicks, paste it in. So now it's
Right.
more loud and level. And then it takes all the peaks, right? And it cuts them off so you can boost the overall track a little bit more. I know I sometimes like I'll have a syllable that spikes, so I have to like lower
Mhm.
that so I can kind of increase the overall verse volume because it's too much of a spike. And
Right.
like so that's kind of what they do, and what they push it is to the fucking maximum because I believe what ends up happening is when you hear two songs back to back, the louder one sounds better to the average listener.
Yeah. To like an average person, they would prefer the louder one. But
Just yeah.
it also consequent and you can overdo it. Like you definitely, nailed it with regards to like especially with real instruments, like, you do need to have like some gain control and some some signal like limiting compression or whatever. But the problem is people just there's overdoing it with you can overdo it with anything. Like you could overdo it with reverbs, echoes, delays, distortions, whatever it is. It's just and then honestly, it's mainly at the mastering stage where you start to see it because like I've heard like some mix downs of records that were mastered, and it's just like, holy shit, they pushed the fuck out of this.
Yeah, I'm
And
not
it's
even gonna lie. I don't think I could hear half the shit you would hear when you're doing it. I just like, cause I know it. Cause when they say brick wall, cause if you export your file, right, you
right,
see the wave. when it's mastered like a la Max, like I think Korn does this shit a lot. It's like literally a line of black.
Yeah.
Whereas if
Yep.
you render some shit, yo, shout out Ghostface Miller for the fucking gifted sub.
Boom.
Um,
Boom. Boom. Boom.
and then like yo, so what ends up being like when I export shit, it's like it's like a fucking zigzag of like spikes and shit
Right.
because I
That's
don't know how to
dynamics.
fucking
That shows the dynamics.
yeah, I don't know how to do the brick wall shit. I would never bother to learn it because it sounds like I'd lose a year of my life trying to figure out how to do it badly. but like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but like, I just kind of get it. So I mean, I don't know. I'm sure some people like the sound of that brick wall shit, but it's kind of why people I think like older music on an aesthetic level because nobody knew how to do that shit. So everything sounded more like a live environment, closer to a live environment. Whereas I look at it like the brick walling is like this pursuit of perfection almost, where it's like
Right.
the second a flaw happens, oh fuck that, let's like patch it up, and it's like I don't
I
know.
feel like it's kind of representative of like the whole aspect of digital, and I'm not anti-digital, mind you, but digital is, for better or worse, the same. It performs exactly the same. And it can be very flat sometimes, and the problem is that back when people were doing analog, there was a lot more emphasis on the mids and the lower end, whereas digital, especially when you brick wall shit, and it works for, I think it does work for certain music, like a lot of that super glossy uh EDM pop,
Or
you know
just let's go back to the
that
Black
works.
Eyed Peas for the Black
Yeah, it
Eyed
works.
Peas.
Yes, indeed. No, it works great for that, but for this kind of stuff, and even like from a hip hop standpoint, like I grew up listening to the work of engineers like Eddie Sancho, Bob Power, Chris Conway, a lot of guys, Duro.
Bro, nobody's name dropped their like engineers that inspired them on my show before.
Yeah, well, if you listen to a lot of if you listen to NFCOC with Aeon's one, that's pretty much me shamelessly like trying to, because the thing with like especially Eddie Sancho's mixes, and he did a lot of DJ Premier's, like pretty much a huge bulk of DJ Premier's catalog, was that the vocals were always crisp, like everything was just like perfectly balanced. It wasn't like too much of this. It was like, I don't know, it was just something about his mixes that kind of really caught my ear. And then I started to take, I may, have other, points of inspiration from other producers where they may have like a rippier kick drum, and kind of just cobbling different pieces of sonic inspiration together to like create my specific, you know, kind of a mix. But there are aspects of like that specific song NFCOC where it's just like, yeah, this sounds like so and so mix this vocal track, you know. But yeah, the engineers, man, I feel like in a lot of cases, because especially Bob Power, where he helped kind of mold he helped Tribe find their sound, low end theory onward. He was super important in that. Just getting the drums, he kind of set the standard to like how drums, like hip hop drums, pop. Because like before then, it was really just like sampling sampling drum sounds from breaks and stuff was still pretty novel by the time it was like 89, 90. And people were, okay, how do we add like some extra pop to this snare? And he would take like a cowbell or some shit, like the attack of a cowbell, and layer it under the snare. Like if you listen to Excursions, listen to that fucking if you play the original break that song samples, and you listen to the snare on that original break compared to the song, it pops so much more, because they were doing shit like layering like the attack of a cowbell under the fucking snare, so it's just like, so it's like it would snap, like snappy ass snares.
I've
And
never
it,
heard
and it kind of
anybody
upped the
describe
ante.
cowbell use in such a cool way before.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about like when you kind of look at things like as pieces of sound rather than whole entire sounds, and I can use the attack of this sound, which is like a really tiny, like
Yo, can you
the
just
tiniest bit. Yeah, yeah,
explain what
yeah.
the attack is? I know what that is, sort of.
The attack, the attack is like the very start of the sound. So like the hard, like the smack of like like the snare. So if you have a snare, right, and it's basically just the first hit of the snare. So what you would do is you would take a sound, like if you wanted to layer something with a snare, you would take a sound that's kind of in the frequency range that would layer good with that snare, and maybe you'd have to pitch it up or down a little bit, but you would trim it so you just get the part that you want, and then you layer it under the snare, and then you just level the volume so it sounds like it's all one sound. It's pretty much just sonic trickery.
That's wild. I
Yeah.
mean, like as you're describing it, it sounds like end of the day, engineers create sounds more than a lot of other people do.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in a lot of cases, especially back in those days where people didn't have everything figured out yet, the engineers helped the producers find their sound. Like I think Dilla was one of the first, not maybe not one of the first, but he was one of those producers that kind of knew where everything was. Like if you listen to his demo tapes, like his beat tapes, right? His drums were slapping right out the gate.